Hello, Internet, and thank you for joining me today. I'm back with you with another non scripted video. I'm doing these all in a row because I've got a little bit of time to kill and not a lot of script. Every time I sit down to script this, it just comes out a jumbled mess. So, I'm here to talk about the thing that literally no one is talking about. This will get me nowhere in my YouTube career, but I feel the need to open up my mic and just let all this bile out. If you listen to my Slewfoot review, haha, then you would know that my undisputed favorite holiday is Halloween. Now, a lot of people would think, unjustifiably so, that I don't like Christmas that much, and that is not entirely true. I like Christmas well enough. It's just not my favorite, nor is it my least favorite. It's kind of right there in the middle, right below 4th of July, because I do enjoy drinking in the summer. But as somebody who has a passing affinity for Christmas, I am pretty offended with what Disney Plus has been putting up recently. If you weren't already aware, because you're a self-respecting adult that has better things to do with their life, there have been 2 Christmas specials that have come out in the last month-ish. I'm not exactly sure when the Family Guy one came out, but the Simpsons Christmas special has just come out a little less than a week ago from when I'm recording this. And I have found that both of these Christmas specials are absolutely terrible. Now, it's not controversial to say that Modern Simpsons is awful, or even that Modern Family Guy is awful. But what I think is really kind of insulting is that both of these are trying to come on the heels of like an anniversary. I think it's like 30-something years for The Simpsons, and I think it's like 19 or 20 something for Family Guy. I can't be bothered to look it up because they couldn't be bothered to put any effort into these scripts. I think I'm going to start by just quickly tearing apart the Family Guy one because it's the one I watched first and it's the one I have the least to say about. And really what I mean by that is that there's really not a lot to say about it. I think LS Mark is the only other one that I've heard talk about this special, and he really hit the nail on the head when he said that this is really just another Family Guy episode. There's nothing special about it. I'll try my best to condense the plot down from what I remember and really just try to get this within about 60 seconds here. So the whole A story, I should say, rather, is that Peter gets stuck with a white elephant gift exchange at work, and he ends up stealing a brooch from Lois. Turns out that the brooch is really important to Lois, and so he's trying to get it back. Meanwhile, Stewie is pretending like he isn't evil anymore, and he's trying to get back to being evil. They've done this plot like 3 or 4 times. It's weird. LS Mark points it out better and says the exact right thing, which is they've spent more time pretending Stewie wasn't evil than him actually being evil. So that whole joke lands really flat really quick and has nothing to do with Christmas. And even the A plot really doesn't have a whole lot to do with Christmas. They just spend about 20 minutes writing jokes about Peter, Cleveland, Quagmire, and Joe trying to get this brooch back, and they barely even address that it's related to Christmas. If the thing wasn't shaped like a Christmas tree, you really wouldn't be able to tell that this is supposed to be related to Christmas in any way. There's no jokes that make me laugh in this whole thing, and really, man, it just makes it feel like it's not December. Like, this could have come out in September and been about a baseball that Chris liked, Alright, I just had to stop my recording and re-record this section because I did remember that there's some whole plot line about Stewie throwing away all his guns because he's not evil anymore, and one of them gets into the hands of Meg and he accidentally shoots her. Then he wishes that Meg was there for Christmas, and Santa brings him a new Meg for Christmas that's incorrectly assembled. That's a joke, I guess, in Modern Family Guy. We really need this show to just go off the air, or at least take more time to write some of these episodes. There's really nothing more I can add to this one, so I'm going to move on to the Simpsons episode. Now, this episode of The Simpsons is really much more offensive to me, and it's partially because I have more of an attachment to The Simpsons. It used to run in syndication whenever I was coming home from school, so instead of watching cartoons like everyone else did because they had cable, I had to watch, reruns of The Simpsons and King of the Hill and stuff. So that was my childhood for a long time, and I watched all of the early episodes of The Simpsons more than once. I will continue to watch them as I age, because as I age, they only get better. However, this episode is offensive, in my opinion. It is so disrespectful to the characters we know and, honestly, the traditions that we as Americans hold dear. So I'm going to try exactly what I did with the Family Guy episode and try to recap this thing in about 60 seconds or less. So the A story, or what I'm going to call the A story, is about this mentalist that comes to town, and he convinces Homer that he is Santa Claus. And Homer is supposedly so dumb that he goes on believing he's Santa Claus until he's literally having to be shaken out of it for whatever reason. But anyway, the town gets a whole bunch of Christmas spirits, and everyone loves him. And then when he's taken out of the Santa persona, there is a whole bunch of magic lost or something, which the only one that this seems to affect is Ned Flanders, who, through a convoluted series of events, all of a sudden becomes atheist. And, that is actually a pretty interesting idea. I'm kind of going off of the recap here into some commentary, but bear with me for just a second. So it's kind of a neat idea to make Ned Flanders have a crisis of faith. It's really understandable because they even frame it in the way that he has lost both Edna and Maud. Maud's her name. Keeping that pause in there because it literally took me that long to remember her name. She's been out of the show for a long time. But anyway, it is a good idea to give Ned this crisis of faith. It's interesting to think about that, but the way they execute it and the way they've kind of rolled it into the Homer Santa stuff, it just feels so forced. Like, it just takes a sharp right turn, and it's tonally way darker than everything else that's been going on in the episode. It doesn't have anything to do with Christmas even. It's just... And I think the biggest sin that this really commits is that it stops being about anything to do with Christmas. Like, sure, Rod and Todd having these, secular, or more secular, I should say. It's hard to say anything with Christmas is secular, but these more secular holiday traditions and engaging with them, sure, that makes for a kind of witty joke, I guess, if you're a big fan of Rod and Todd Flanders. But moving on with my recap now, Ned has this crisis of faith, and he gets his faith restored when he meets up with Dr. Finkelstein, I think his name is. It's the stereotypical nerdy scientist character guy. He goes down in a homemade sub. I don't know if that's in reference to the Subgate or whatever that news story was, but anyway, goes down in a sub and, restores his faith by giving him a near-death experience, essentially. But what's insulting about this, and I'm veering again into my commentary, but what's really insulting about this is that immediately after Ned declares that he is once again going to have faith in God and believe in God and all this stuff, we are given the exact way that he was basically tricked into believing in God, which is so antithetical to anything to do with Christmas. It is literally just offensive. I'm offended that you would do that. If you had just left this part out and literally left it so that, oh, hey, he had a near-death experience and now he has faith again. Status quo restored, whatever. It would have been a nothing episode, but I would prefer a nothing episode in modern Simpsons than this offensive fucking garbage, because they sit down and they spell out to you how exactly they did all of this, and it's also stupid. But that is the A plot of this episode, or what it really feels like is it's two discarded A plots of two completely different Simpsons episodes that they have just nailed together and not bothered to make work together in any way. But the B and kind of sort of C plots of this are that the B plot would be probably the one with Bart. He's having this crisis because he doesn't get the warm, fuzzy feeling of Christmas anymore. And in order to restore this, Lisa tells him, like, hey, as you get older and you get more mature, it's about giving more than getting, because you're getting older, you naturally will feel the Christmas spirit when you give something. And so when Flanders is going through his whole crisis of faith, Bart tries to scare him back into believing in God. He does a whole bunch of stuff to make them think that all these Christmas traditions, these more secular traditions, are evil and satanic and whatever, that they've been probably spouting for years. But anyway, that doesn't work, but it does make Marge come to Bart and say, oh, hey, it's so nice that you listened to what I told you, that, because she told him earlier in the episode something about how they needed to help the Flanders. It really doesn't connect much with the main plot. What's kind of weird is that growing up, I always knew that the Simpsons would always take, a hard right turn at some point in the episode and would be about something completely different than what it started out as. It could be that Homer started out with car trouble and then they ended up in the Amazon rainforest. There's not an episode like that, at least one off the top of my head, but that's the kind of formula I had grown used to. But these A and B plots just have so little to do with each other that I struggle to remember if Bart and Homer even interacted with each other. And they're supposed to live in the same house. But anyway, moving on to kind of sort of a C plot. So what I'm going to call the C plot here, because this is a 40-minute quote-unquote special, the C plot is that Ralph, when Homer is turned into Santa, becomes Homer's elf, and he follows Homer around and hangs out with him so that they can do stuff with each other. They're doing Santa Claus things. They're trying to give toys. They're trying to give gifts, I think. It's not necessarily toys, but it's just gifts. Trying to give gifts away, and it's barely touched on. Like, Ralph says, like, maybe 10 lines. And one of those lines happens, like, I think it's something like 3/4 of the way through, when Ned's having his whole crisis of faith, and you really want to be focusing on that. They suddenly cut away to Homer being imprisoned for trying to break into someone's house and be Santa Claus. But instead he gets arrested, and Ralph shows up to unlock him because he's Chief Wiggum's son. And when Ralph shows up and unlocks Homer, he says, I feel different. Now, in a better show, or a better episode of this same show, that would actually resonate, because he is, a mentally unhealthy kid, so it makes a lot of sense that he wouldn't be able to describe the feeling of, I have changed, I have matured, I am different ever after experiencing this with you, specifically Homer Simpson. So him saying, I'm different, is supposed to be profound. But the fact that, Ralph was just there to say something random, so funny, and not really interact with Homer, we didn't get any build up to that. They didn't deserve that line. That line was for a much better episode of this show. What I find really weird is that for both Ralph Wiggum and Ned Flanders, I never have felt like the show has been mean-spirited towards these characters. I never felt like Ralph's mental disability was something to be made fun of. It's just one of his quirks. Like many in Springfield have their quirks, his is just that he doesn't have the same level of intelligence as the rest of us. Or at least in the same way that we have it. And, Ned Flanders' whole, I am nicer than everyone because I believe in God and I want to go to heaven, blah, blah, blah. None of that was solidly to make fun of the character. But I really feel like in this episode, they used these quirks of these characters that we have known for literal decades to insult them and insult the demographics that they kind of represent. Like, they really take a whole pot shot at Christmas with this Christmas special. I'm sorry if this seems a little disjointed, but I do need to backtrack to an earlier point in my video, and I need to reestablish when they reveal exactly how they tricked Ned into believing in God again. They, at the same time, in the same scene, without breaking anything, they... I'm struggling to actually kind of summarize this. Alright, here's my best shot at getting this all out there. So, they have this mentalist character. He's some guy from the UK. I'm not going to look up who he is because I don't care. But he's the one that tricked Homer into being Santa for the bit that he was, and then he's the one that convinced Homer that he wasn't Santa. So he's the one that, set up all of this stuff to kind of trick Ned into believing again in God. And there is a big sack of stuff that Homer was planning on giving to everyone around town, and one of them is this mentalist character from the UK, and he gives him the present that he was supposed to give Maggie, and that was actually a little tie, and he thinks it's for his ventriloquist dummy, which kind of tricks him into, believing more or less in Santa, because how could Homer have known that he was into ventriloquism? But really it was just a mistake. And the whole reveal of that, it happens a little bit differently in the show, I should just point out, in all fairness, but that is what happens. And then they reveal everything that I just revealed at the very end, and the reveal, they could have just left it somewhat magical. They could have just said, oh, hey, Homer just handed him the present that he specifically picked out. And maybe Homer knew, maybe he didn't. Maybe he's Santa Claus, maybe he isn't. That would have been fun. It wouldn't have made up for everything else in the episode that I fucking hated, and it still would feel pretty insulting. But I wouldn't feel as, talked down to and insulted as I do by them just revealing that, oh no, it's because Homer's a big idiot, and, he mixed up Maggie's present with this mentalist character's present. It's hard to see your favorite franchises die like this. I often get into kind of a pseudo argument with my brother about certain things. Like, he really likes that the second Joker movie exists. I'm about to rip that movie to pieces in a different video, but it's times like this that I just really struggle to justify why these things exist. Like, why did we need this Simpsons special? Why did we need another season of The Simpsons? They have told all of the stories that they want to tell. And I truly believe that no one wants to write for this show or Family Guy anymore. And so I think both franchises just need to stop, and the creative people that they have chained to these IPs need to be let free to write different stories, whether they be good or bad. Because there's a distinct possibility that the hacky writers on The Simpsons will continue to write hacky stories going forward, but at least they would be in new creative endeavors, and we might get something good out of it, as opposed to getting, at best, mediocre stories in these newer Simpsons shows. But anyway, I really felt like I had to say something about these two specials. I feel like Disney has flipped us one final middle finger before Mufasa comes out. I'm not going to watch Mufasa. I don't care about it. I hated the 2019 one. If you want further thoughts on it, YMS has done a phenomenal job with his Lion King review, even though all of it's not out yet. But we will patiently wait for him to get his entire review out before we make any more judgments on that. But go to his channel. He has a lot more things to say about the 2019 Lion King reboots, but yeah, I'm not watching Mufasa. And the next video that I want to make is actually about Sonic. So yeah, I'm gonna watch Sonic this weekend and hopefully have a review up at some point next week. And I want to do one more video before the end of the year, and Family Guy and The Simpsons need to both go off the air, and that's all I got to say. But anyway, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please show me by leaving a like, and if you want to see more of me rambling with no scripts, go ahead and hit subscribe. And if you want me to review any videos or movies or TV shows or anime or music or anything like that, please leave a comment down in the comment section below. But until next time, I am the Ice King. Sayonara, bitches.